That's your leadership story.
Well, leadership's kind of fashionable thing these days. People talk about leadership in business and leadership in government, leadership this, that, and the other. And I'm not sure anyone really understands where it comes from and what it does and how it happens. I'm not convinced. I've got friends who say it's a science, which is definitely not a science. I mean, if there's anything, it's a mysterious art, but it's certainly not a science. But as an ex-soldier, what strikes me as odd is the best bit of leadership. Sometimes people say, what was the best bit of leadership you ever saw, ever witnessed, ever experienced? And funnily enough, it was from a guy who was very mild, very meek, don't think he ever raised his voice above 2 syllables, was a pacifist, out and out, hated all things military, and he's now dead, died on Everest a few years after this took place, the story about tell, and probably would be horrified to hear himself being cited as the exemplar of leadership. We're on a mountain, myself, this guy Pete Boardman, 2 other guys called Gauri Sankar in the Himalayas, up in the west of Everest. And we've been on this ridge hadn't been climbed, but we've been up for something like 20 days, self-supporters, a lot of kit, a lot of food, a lot of hassle. We were pretty much wasted. And the ridge was horrendous. It was kind of knife edge, one side 6,000 feet down into Nepal, the other side 6,000 feet down in Tibet. In fact, the proof of this, one of the guys dropped his sleeping bag when he was stuffing in his sack, and it just bowled off down in Tibet, 6,000 feet, and he had 6 days thereafter, 7, 8 days thereafter, no sleeping bag. This is November, 23,000 feet. Hard lad. Man, he didn't have much choice. Couldn't go home very easily. Anyway, the deal was, there were 4 of us, the deal was two guys would push out the route one day, 2 guys would hump loads, then we'd swap over. I woke up one morning with this guy, Guy Niehart, a Swiss guy, who I was with that day. Pete and Tim Leach were carrying loads that day. We woke up, it was foggy, it was misty, it was windy, and we were exhausted. And we looked along the ridge, and we tried to go along it. One time I put my hand on the ridge for a rest, and a hand went through, and you look through the hole it made, and you could look down 6,000 feet into Tibet, and it was that precipitous. And we'd only gone 50, 60 feet, and we ran out of everything. We ran out of guts, we ran out of energy, we ran out of moral fibre. We just were beaten. And we self-justified this. We said, the whole thing's unjustifiable, it's crazy, it's insane, we're going to go home. So we went back to our little tent on a little pinnacle you wouldn't believe, and sulked in there, brewing tea for a couple of hours while Pete and the other guy carried loads. And they eventually appeared. Pete appeared, was surprised to see us still in the tent. Because he was such a mild-mannered guy, didn't say anything immediately, didn't get cross. Okay, what's the story, guys? And I said, Pete, the whole thing's crazy. This ridge is unjustifiable. We can't sustain our effort. We need to go home. We're beat. Which Guy, Guy Niehart and I were beat. We were beat. And he could have done a number of things. He could have done a Henry V speech before Agincourt, to which I would have been susceptible, being an old romantic marine. Or he could have got cross, or he could have registered some form of disgust, or he could have done a pile of things. But he didn't do anything. Well, he did something. He didn't say anything. The fact this piece of leadership is without a word, it's without a syllable. He just shrugged, looked around, picked up a rope, tied onto it, said to Tim, hold the rope, and just started down the ridge. Past the tent, just started down the ridge, into the mist. Not to shame us, but just to keep the trip going, I guess. And I've been talking leadership and trying to demonstrate leadership, and I've been subjected to leadership for 40, 50 years now, or 40 years since I joined the Marines, I guess. And I don't think ever I've seen a more powerful display of moral courage, leadership, whatever you want to call it, in my life. Fantastic. And of course it so shamed us, it wasn't his intention. We've had so embarrassed about this, we immediately packed huge amounts of kit and followed them along the ridge, and we got up the mountain. We wouldn't have done, we would have failed. Had it been up to me and had it been up to the guy, we would have failed. But Peter Boardman, his name was, died on Everest with Bonington on the northeast ridge a few years later. We found him and his pacifism, which was anathema to me as an ex-Marine, his wordlessness, his syllable-lessness, if there's such a word, without that powerful moral demonstration of guts, we wouldn't have gone up, and we did.